on what is happening in the music industry from my boy who is very, very connected in all areas of the music industry. Pause. My boy Raj Love Soul. What are you saying, Raj?
What's going on, Illatek? How you doing, man?
Everything is going good, man. How's things with you?
It's amazing, man. It's a great pleasure to be a part of your show, man. We're looking forward to sharing the information every single week.
So this is the first week. I'm expecting this to turn into some kind of amazing marriage, and where we just give, the listeners a lot of information on what's going on right now in the world of hip-hop and R&B.
Exactly.
So where are you going to kick it off this week? Obviously, massive things have happened last week, but I'll let you tell us, where are we going to start, man?
So it's been a huge week, and I really want to start off with the biggest story, which unfortunately is the saddest news, which is the passing of hip-hop manager Chris Lighty. Now, this guy is well worth a Google, for those of you who don't know the industry side of the business. Chris Lighty is a manager of many large hip-hop acts, namely the ones you'd recognize would be people of the caliber of Puff Daddy, Mariah Carey, 50 Cent, and it was a massive shock a few days ago when he was actually coming out of his home after an alleged argument with his estranged wife and actually committed suicide. Now, Chris was 44 years old. The thing about Chris, being the CEO of Violator Entertainment, which manages people like Busta Rhymes and LL Cool J, is that he was one of the true hip-hop heavyweights. So when you talk about people like Kevin Liles, Leo Cohen, Jimmy Iovine, Jamil Spencer, these are the kind of big hip-hop deal makers, and Chris Lighty was really part of that. So his shock was his death was a massive shock to the whole industry. Immediately, if you looked on Twitter, you saw an outpour of sympathies from people like Nicki Minaj, DJ Khaled, Brandy, Fat Joe, Diddy himself, Rev Run, Rihanna, Luda. But I think the one that I gravitated towards the most, which was 50 Cent, he kind of summarized it in a couple of lines really well, and probably what a lot of Chris's clients felt, which is that Chris has been an important part of my business and personal growth for over a decade. He was a good friend and an advisor who helped me develop as an artist and as a businessman. So it's a huge blow, and it's really kind of one of the deep hip-hop entrepreneurial routes that's been untaken, and I think it's even worse because it's a suicide, and kind of the backstory behind it, which is still being revealed, is coming together. So it happened under really kind of unfortunate circumstances, a huge loss for the hip-hop community.
I think it's just incredible the way that the outpouring from the whole hip-hop community, the whole R&B community, has really come out in support of this man. But Raj, having looked at this, I'm suspicious. I mean, did you think that everything meets the eye correctly, or do you think there's something more?
So this is a big story. I mean, as a community, hip-hop hasn't really felt this way since we lost Heavy D some time ago. Yeah. And I think the thing about it is that Chris was such a well-connected man that if there was any suspicion of any kind of, I guess if it was a suspicious death, it would have come to the light probably a lot faster than a lesser-known person in the industry. And it appears to be the case that everybody is obviously under massive shock. Everybody is massively saddened by this. And if there was anything that came about that was suspicious that led to his death, it would have probably come to the surface by now. So unfortunately, we have to put it down to a suicide. It's what we know at the moment. And of course, his footprint in hip-hop will be dearly missed. Because
a lot of people, it was, I wouldn't say common knowledge, but a lot of people did know that the guy was in quite a serious amount of debt, and he had been problems with his estranged wife, and that was the argument that he apparently had. So maybe it all just adds up.
I mean, I think ultimately the fact that trigger was pulled, we'll never know now looking back what it was, or the combination of the cocktail of factors that led to it happening. I guess what we do know is that this is a deal maker who kind of broke down the doors for hip-hop by doing deals with the Mountain Dews and the Gaps and getting people like Busta Rhymes and LL Cool J massive kind of marketing deals. And I think, he kind of opened the door for those deals to continue happening. So as those deals continue to happen in the future, nowadays hip-hop is all over almost every single type of commercial. Chris Lighty is responsible for kind of making that the foundation of hip-hop entrepreneurship.
Such a shame. We're going to be playing a lot of Violator tracks tonight and over the next few weeks. I might have to dig out that old Violator album from whenever it was, the early 2000s, and maybe do some of that stuff on the show as well.
That album and the animation that came with it is a classic. For
real, man. But moving on to more cheery things, this is the nature of life, I guess. So moving on to more cheery things, man. Raj, what else has interested you in the world of music this week?
Well, just as the hip-hop community hit a massive low in terms of losing Chris Lighty, we also hit a massive high thanks to hip-hop's golden boy, Jay-Z. Now, in the last week, Jay-Z actually put on the first, what he calls, annual Made in America festival. Now, Jay-Z had an all-star lineup over the last weekend. On the Saturday, some of the notable people were Jay-Z, Calvin Harris, who many people do not know is signed to Jay-Z's management label, Maybach Music Group, specifically Rick Ross, Wale, and Meek Mill, as well as the people that have got the underground soul following, like the D'Angelos and the Janelle Monáes. On the Sunday, he is able to have Pearl Jam up there, Drake, Philadelphia's own Jill Scott, and the return of Run DMC after quite some time, and Rita Ora. And speaking of Jill Scott, you'd think that if Jay was in Philly, that the Roots would be backing him. But Questlove, the drummer from the Roots, actually told Philly.com that he was feeling very salty about the fact that he couldn't do it, not in a negative way to Jay-Z, but unfortunately because the Roots were booked 8 months earlier to commit to a show in Ireland. So unfortunately, that kind of icing on the cake wasn't there. But from any of the video footage that you can see online through websites like Mr. World Premiere, you can see that that show was absolutely electric. He also brought out good music as well, and it was great to see people like Pusha T and Big Sean, and a lot of people that are coming from the underground, sharing the stage with someone like Hove.
Absolutely epic. Whenever it comes to concerts and that, Hove really, with Live Nation, just puts it down.
Well, when you think about the Live Nation deal, if anybody's heard Rick Ross's last album, God Forgives I Don't, Jay spits a couple of verses about the Live Nation deal, saying that he had a $150 million US advance for the last few years to put on these shows. Now he's saying that they're talking about 250 million, and he might settle at 275. What that makes you think about these particular kind of deals is that if he's getting advances and then going out and doing things like the South by Southwest show for American Express, that he's actually going to have a lot more shows coming. Now, Jay-Z's not a stupid guy. He realizes that, of course, he can't fill arena after arena, night after night, non-stop, particularly in markets that are already fertile for music. So he's bringing up people like Calvin Harris, Rita Ora, all which are part of Rock Nation, making sure that they get exposure on stages that he does. So therefore, if those artists do become as big as him in the future, that he's always got that platform to go back to. And of course, if you're going to give a guy 250 to 275 million, you're going to expect him to come up with some, what you would call event properties that you can scale out across the whole of the US. So if Made in America becomes a annual event and it ends up going to other states, you can see that there's at least another 50 opportunities whereby Jay could roll this show out, assuming that he lives another 50 years. But having Barack Obama set this one off was a nice look.
That was a crazy look. I mean, Jay-Z just continues to do so much for hip-hop, so much for us, on not just making tunes, but creating a landscape where we can continue to enjoy it and continue to see these artists live for a long time.
Yeah, and I think what the thing to look at right now as well is that as the live format becomes kind of the most critical part of hip-hop, it's really where this money is made. It's through ticket sales and through merchandise. I think you're going to see a lot more diversification from Jay-Z in terms of his overall business portfolio and what kind of things he's going to create in the live space. I mean, Made in America is just a first example, but if you give a guy $250 million, you can bet he's going to come up with additional things. He's already the executive producer behind the 2013 NBA video game, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that kind of activity, and you'll see a lot more of that activity coming into the live event space as Jay-Z gets kind of more and more money and more traction. This event was organized with the state of Philadelphia, so you can see that he's kind of planning these things on a much bigger scale than ever before.
Most definitely, man. Now, taken in a slightly different direction, did you see the whole thing about Beyonce giving Kim K the snub?
I've heard that Kim Kardashian did come in separately on a helicopter for Made in America, and they didn't come in a kind of Wagsmobile, if you will.
No, they're sitting on separate sides of the stage, and apparently, B didn't even acknowledge Kim K till right at the end, and was hanging out with Rita Ora a lot and kind of snubbed Kim K, and Kim K just had to hang out with Kanye and nobody else.
Well, I think for Kim Kardashian, that's not a bad look, getting to hang out with one of the festival's big acts. But I think realistically, you're not always going to see Kim Kardashian and Beyonce shoulder to shoulder, especially with the fact that if you truly put both of these people down on paper, you've got one of the most game-changing music artists since Tina Turner in Beyonce, and Kim Kardashian that probably hasn't brought as much to the table artistically, as it were.
Nothing that we can say on on the radio anyway.
No, but if you do a search around, you will see that she's very talented.
She has changed her game in certain other ways. She's changed Ray J's game, definitely, for a little bit.
Absolutely. And so moving on to the heat that you need to be involved in this week as far as mixtapes are concerned. It's been a massive week for mixtapes, Illatek.
What you got for me? I know that the Lil Wayne just dropped today. Today we got the dedication, right?
So with the dedication, I think it actually dropped Monday 4 p.m. Eastern time in the US. Right. Now, if you were looking at the whole of the US, certainly down south came with it. I think the Wayne tape was really, really important because, of course, it was DJ Drama. It's Dedication 4. It's the fourth part of the series. And, of course, Wayne has many series as a mixtape Wheezy, including things like No Ceilings. Now, I've heard the Wheezy tape. It was the first one that I actually took time out to listen to. And I thought it was quite an interesting tape in the sense that if it had followed on directly after Dedication 3 or No Ceilings a couple of years ago, I'd have been impressed. But Wayne heavily commits to punchline rap and bragging, more so than he does storytelling. Now, this wouldn't normally be a problem if this was a couple of years ago, but what you got to remember, Illatek, is that this year, Drama's already put out the 2 hottest street tapes, one with 2 Chainz and the other one with Meek Mill, where 2 Chainz and Meek Mill both got into a lot of storytelling and actually stepped their game up maturely, where actually you've got 2 young guys, younger, I mean, certainly Meek is younger than Weezy, and he's not out there talking about skateboarding and taking all types of substances and all kinds of other profanity. He's actually got something a bit more meaningful. So in the context of the overall DJ Drama tape, I would say that maybe he's not actually got the best drama tape out this year. It's a good tape and it's full of punchlines, and if you're a Weezy fan, definitely get it in your collection. But is it the best drama tape of the year? Probably not.
What would you say is your favourite track off it to just wrap everything up for us?
I've got to say that I think that the Cashing Out remix that he's done is super hot. But if you're in the market for tapes right now, on the East Coast you've got Talib Kweli and Z-Trip, a big festival act that have just released Attack the Block. Up top you've got Twister from Chicago, he's just put out a Reloaded tape. But if you're really looking for the next big thing in hip-hop, you need to pay attention to Ritz, R-I-T-T-Z. He has recently signed a deal with Tech Nine's record label Strange Music. Now, Ritz is known as the White Jesus, and his White Jesus video was directed by Yellow Wolf, who actually put Tech Nine onto Ritz. This is an important deal because Tech Nine is the highest earning independent artist in the US right now. He has 2 trucks worth of merchandise follow him around from city to city, and he makes millions and millions of dollars. So Tech Nine is kind of the Jay-Z of the indie world, and he's just signed this young guy, Ritz. Who knows what he can do with this white rapper?
Sounds real good, man, and there's such a market for that out there, man. There really, really is. Now, Raj, I love it. You've given us some great information this week. I want to invite you back every week, man.
That's amazing, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the reach out.
What's the Twitter, man? How can we connect with you?
So the Twitter is my real name. I'm going to go ahead and spell it. It's at Raj, R-A-J, and my last name is Kotecha, K-O-T-E-C-H-A. So find me on Twitter, or if you search for Raj Love Soul, you'll see a whole bunch of blog posts that I've done in the past, and you can find me on there.
That's what's up, man. Take it easy, Raj. We'll catch you next week with some more information.
Much respect to Illatek.